Hello and welcome to the Road to Rec League podcast. I'm Callum, and in today's episode, we're going to be covering off what I think the Jets can do about their current situation, and also talk a little bit about what's been a pretty busy week for personal progression. That's right, another week has gone by, and it was a busy one. 4 separate ice hockey sessions this week. No public skating, just 4 sessions of hockey. And I can still feel it in my legs today. Which doesn't bode so well for practice later. But I think putting the effort in now is going to make the difference when the season comes around. So, well, fingers crossed it does anyway. Right, so I'm going to start off with talking Jets, actually, rather than how sore my legs are. And I want to talk about a couple of different things. Really, this whole thought exercise was kicked off by some quick maths and having a conversation with Google Gemini, I think it was, or one of the AI chat bots. I asked it a simple question, really, because the Winnipeg Jets still refuse to break up the top line. And you know what? They keep scoring. I understand it's hard to do, but I kind of want to take you on a bit of a thought exercise as to why it might not be a bad thing to try. So, if the top line are set in stone, okay, and so we've only got 9 forward slots that we can make changes on. And we assume that centres are unchanged because it is a difficult role. You can't necessarily have wingers playing centres and all that sort of stuff. So for the purpose of this exercise, the top line is set. All of the centre depth is set. Whoever you pick, those are your centres, okay? There are 720 combinations that you can make to take that ice. Now, you've got to think about this being, it could be that bottom line as an example. Let's say it's got Nemesnikov or whatever, or I say bottom line, it doesn't really matter what line they are. The line is the name of the centre. The Nemesnikov line could have Pearson on the left wing, and it could have Barron on the right wing. Or it could have Pearson on the right wing and Barron on the left wing. Those are 2 separate options. Those are different line combinations. They're playing different positions. So for the purposes of this calculation, that's just something to bear in mind. 720 combinations. And I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of combinations. And you'd be right to say that because there are 82 games in a season. So if you made no mid-game line changes, you're looking at, 9 seasons worth of games before you've tried every combination? And that's if you keep the top line together. However, if you don't have a cemented top line, that number goes to over 40,000 combinations. Pause for effect, just to let that sort of sink in. 40,000 different combinations. When you're looking for ways to succeed, usually having more options is better than having fewer options. Now, I appreciate you can have paralysis by analysis, where you have too many options to choose from, or option paralysis, and you can't pick the one you think is the right thing to do. I get that as well. But just generally, I think that's quite a staggering number to come across. And why it's staggering is that it would only take 1 or 2 of those 40,000, well, let's say 39,000 other options, although it's actually more than 40,000 still, but it would only take 1 or 2 of those options to actually potentially make a change or make a difference. Another way of looking at it, again, if we're looking at ways to succeed, let's say your 2 of your best players in the organisation, okay, play together. That means that their ice time, the time that your best 2 players are on the ice, is going to sum to, or is going to effectively be, let's say 20 minutes, or 25 minutes at most, because of power plays and changes and stuff like that, if they're on the same line. You have the potential to almost double it. You can run 2 lines, the 2 best players in your team, so you're getting 40 minutes coverage of your 2 best players instead of 23 minutes coverage of your 2 best players. We've seen it in Edmonton. Now, okay, it is different. It's absolutely different because McDavid is arguably the most talented player in his generation and maybe generation before him. I wouldn't necessarily pick him over Crosby, but he is extremely talented and there's no denying that. And Draisaitl is possibly the 2nd or 3rd most talented person in the league currently. So why would Edmonton play them on the same line? Well, when they have, it hasn't always worked. And they prefer to run them in 2 separate lines because that means you're getting 40 minutes of coverage. You know what? Put them on the same power play, because then you still get the chemistry, you still get the opportunities, and the ice is softer. You've got those gaps. But at the moment, Winnipeg are limiting their options. They are limiting the ice time or coverage of our best players by putting them on the same line. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a real tough one, because especially when you look online, I've seen some polls online that say keep the line together. They're the only scoring line, and I totally get that. But with the only scoring line, we're still losing. Got our bottoms patted yesterday by the Oilers. A good result against Buffalo, but let's just remind ourselves where Buffalo are in the standings, bottom of their division. And then we've had just shit results against other good teams. And I'm not massively confident that we'll do well against Dallas on Tuesday, but that's okay. So I think it's time to start exploring 39,000 other options. Now, obviously, I don't mean let's give Scheifele, Pearson and Koepke. It's an available option. It doesn't mean it's a good one. Although, Scheifele and Pearson did play in junior and they had a pretty excellent season. That is a joke, by the way. That's not actionable. Don't do that. But I'm just thinking in terms of what can you do just with what you've got. Let's say you make no moves, and I'm going to talk about potential moves in a minute. But let's say you make no roster changes. We have still closed our minds to 39,000 options. Wild to think about. So let's say there are no moves. What would I do as a top six, or what would I look to change? Because it's one thing complaining about a problem. I think it's also important to bring forward solutions. So the things I would probably do from a lineup perspective, I'd split up 81 and 55, and I would have that top line go. This is where I'm struggling, because I still think we need a bit of a pace injection on the top line, and we'll probably struggle. But maybe Iafallo, Scheifele, Velarde, and then that second line would be Connor, Lowry, Perfetti. And I would then go and have what I will call a 4A and a 4B for the next two lines, where you have one line centered by Barron, which is a high energy, high tempo, forechecking line with the likes of Koepke, Barron, and another. Another could be like Tanner Pearson, though he's not really got the same energy, or like a Parker Ford or a Lambert or Chibrikov from the Moose. And then I'd have another fourth line, which is a fourth scoring line, which is like Taves, Nemesnikov, Niederreiter. And you go, okay, well that group there there's finishing capability in that. They're not massively consistent. Use them to prey upon other fourth lines, other third lines. That's their scoring opportunity. Okay, give them the weaker matchups. Give Lowry, Connor, and Perfetti the tough matchups. Give Scheifele, Velarde, and Iafallo some of the tougher matchups. And then you've got a nice energy line in Barron. You can use him to try and maybe shut down some of the more offensive lines on the other teams. So I just think it gives you a few more options, and it goes away from at the moment it's a top 3, bottom 9, and literally we seem to be happy talking about that, by the way. A top 3, bottom 9. People, it's been referenced on multiple broadcasts, and no one's questioning that. No one seems to be going, what can we do about that that's a bit different? And like I say, 39,000 options waiting out there, and I'm just suggesting one of them. And I think defensively we have some issues. I mean, Sam Monson shouldn't be sitting games for Shen with the way he's playing, honestly. That seems wild to me at the moment, but there we go. And then, I know no Hellebuck is a problem, but by the same token, this is what life is like without a Vezina-level goaltender for the Jets. It shows you how much he earned that Hart Trophy last year, because he is such a difference maker for this team. And look, all of this is coming from a place of love. I want to see this team succeed, and not just today, but for the next decade. So yeah, it's frustrating when you're watching sort of the same thing over and over again, and you're questioning it. Others are questioning it, and decision makers perhaps aren't questioning it in quite the same way. And look, they'll have information I don't have. I fully respect that. But when you see the same product and the same outcome with the information I do have, I think it's kind of valid to be asking the question of why we haven't explored options 1,000 through 40,000. Anyway, that's obviously, I'm saying no roster changes. So what else can be done? So we can look from within. That's one option. We could change like a technical system or a style of play. I think that's a little bit risky mid-season. Takes time to learn these things. I'm not certain that we'll really stand ourselves in a sort of a good place for success if we were to do something like that. But something you can do is move pieces. Exchange a bishop for a knight or a pawn for a queen if it was that easy. But yeah, change the pieces you have in the room. So I've split this down into two arguments because I think there's two different approaches to this. I think one approach is you do a little shuffle and you go, okay, last year we were the President's Trophy winners, division champions, made it to the second round of the playoffs. It was close, but we did make it. And actually, you know what? There were games where we showed Dallas the what for, and then there were games where they, we lost. So, so the two things you can look at. So the shuffle is you accept those things and you go, okay, in this team, there is a caliber of team that could have a playoff run. So you think, well, what can I change? So I've just tried to, boil it down to threes because if you've listened to any of the previous episodes, threes are the way I like to work. So the first item is looking at right-hand defenseman. Move Shen. Use him as a trade piece. I don't know if you'll get much back for him, except that it's a loss. Cut your losses. None of this sunk cost fallacy nonsense. I know we overpaid. Doesn't matter what you get back for him. There's no point in him being on the roster. Keep Salo up full-time. Use Miller as a rotation piece if you're concerned about the young guy getting too much time. I think we could also benefit from trading for a left-handed defenseman who's a puck mover. When our defense get involved in the game, we have much better showings. So the game against, I'm blanking already, Buffalo, 4-man attacking units everywhere. De-pinching, it was great. We had really mobile, really aggressive defensive sort of positioning. And I think that was, when the Jets are at their best, that is what they're doing. They're being aggressive, they're getting forward. You think about the 15-1 start last year. It was a constant. It was actually awesome to watch. So you need a bit more speed at the back end. You need a little bit more vision. Look up, make a pass, rather than chip it down the ice because you're panicking or I'm too slow, so I don't have the time and space to think about these things, and therefore I have to chip it down the ice. So I'm saying shift Chen, keep Salo up. Point 2, trade for a puck-moving left-handed defenseman. Now, the likes of Minchikov's been mentioned or whatever. I don't necessarily know the piece, but they are a third pair left-handed defenseman. You cannot tell me that they're all trade protected. So that means there will be an opportunity to go after some puck-moving left-handed defenseman. Like a Nate Schmidt style thing, right? That's literally what I'm getting at here. That kind of... Look, they don't have to be the most perfect defensively because they're going to be on a third pair. They're going to play sheltered minutes and they're going to have a steady hand with them. Because with that, I think it gives you the opportunity to shift your lineups around. And it actually means you could start doing Sal Monson with Morrissey, which they've done, and it looked great. They have then put DeMello down on a third pair with, let's say you could have him nurturing a young left-handed defenseman. That's a really good place to be. DeMello's a pretty steady hand. And then you've got Sandberg and Pionk who work really well together. But you can shuffle, I think, that whole right side, honestly. And I think you're in a really good place. I think those two changes give you a fundamentally more versatile defensive core. And then lastly, again, this is just in shuffle mode. This is no major changes, right? Lastly, we trade one of our Swiss Army knife utility forwards for a goal-scoring forward. I don't care if they're slightly defensively unreliable. Got to find a way to get goals outside of your top line. Now, before he went off on one, I think the likes of a Nick Robertson from Toronto would have been the right kind of fit. Pretty young, knows how to shoot, and actually he's playing a really high energy game in Toronto at the moment. There's no way they're going to let go of him. So, or we'd be overpaying. So I guess that ship has sailed. But that kind of 20 goal scorer, maybe more, and you just ship off a utility piece. We've got plenty of forwards that can play plenty of roles, but don't pot the puck in the net. And I think just that one fundamental shift of going, we need a goal scorer first that we will help, so that can learn our system. And if he can be a bit younger as well, and we can get this team's average age down and speed up, then I'm all for it. So I think there's an option there. And that's just a few shuffling moves, right? That's nothing drastic. That's just a couple of hockey trades, a couple of like-for-like changes using some of our current youth depth. Nothing drastic. Because option B is you look at this team's record and you look at their current form, and you take a look at the age of the team, the core, who's been signed up to what, and where this team is potentially heading over. Let's say in 5 years' time, this team's not going to look the same. So do you go, okay, we recognise that we're probably not going to win the cup this year. If that's our goal ultimately to win a Stanley Cup, time to cut bait. Time to accept that that's unlikely with our current roster configuration, and this year we can write off. And if you do that, that gives you a few more options for trade pieces, gives you a bit of time to play the youngsters, gives them more NHL exposure, and it gives you an opportunity to help develop them, because there's some good studies to show that, for elite scoring, or not elite, but for scoring and let's say flashy players, the AHL is not necessarily the best development path. And frankly, more NHL time is only going to be better. I mean, from a personal perspective, and look, I'm clearly not at their level, I learn a lot more from getting exposure to playing with people who are way better than me than I do from playing people who are my level. I feel more confident when I'm playing people who are my level. I enjoy practice. I enjoy both of them. And I feel confident, and I get that kind of dopamine hit, whatever. I get very excited. However, I feel like I learn more, I progress more, and I pick up more when I am playing with people who are better than me. And I think that's the same for any sport, any athlete, at any level. So I would say getting them in the big league isn't going to hurt. So what would I do then? I'm talking about maybe tanking this year. What would I do? Do you know what? I'd probably start by going, okay, if there's no trade value for some of these veterans, fuck it, waive them. What have you got to lose? They're not going to add to your roster this year in the big league. And the good news is, if they pass waivers, they're not moving anywhere because the AHL team is in the same city. So if you're looking to protect like family ties, I mean, Hayden Fleury's talked about in the past, he was always nervous about being sent down, being called up, being sent down, being called up, and being away from his family. Well, that wasn't going to be a problem with the Moose being, local. So there's your opportunity, I think, to if you want to be Mr. Nice Guy, which I don't think gets you very far in this world of professional ice hockey. But waive players that aren't performing, and I think you can just get really brutal with it and go, okay, look, Shen, you've had a shit few games. See you in the Moose. If there's no trade available for the guy, which I'm sure there would be because we made the trade for him. It stands to reason that other people might make the similar choice. And look, I liked Shen last year. I thought he brought some physicality, but I see more and more of the weaker side of his game being exposed, and he's getting older, and you just never know when someone's going to stop being able to play at that level. And I think we're seeing it, unfortunately. So, look, if you can get some trade value off these guys, do it. But if you can't, don't be afraid to waive some veterans. Next up, trade some utility pieces with some time left on their deals. Now, look, I love the players. I think they fit in. There's nothing I don't like about them necessarily as people, and their games are good. But do we want to see people retire here, or do we want to get some value out of it and try and bring in some youth? And if the tank and rebuild option, or let's say retool, is a thing, then do we trade players like Nemesnikov, Niederreiter? They've got a bit of term left on the deal. They're veterans. I would hazard a guess that they'd go quite well at the trade deadline. Both of them have been proven goal scorers in the past. I mean, Vlad, you can play literally anywhere in the lineup. He was 1C for portions of our playoff run last year. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think we've got some pieces there that can garner some real value. And actually, if you look at what they then leave behind in terms of gaps, well, we've got some young players that can hopefully step up and fill the void. No, look, they're not going to be as good. That's part of the purpose of tanking, is to give young players exposure, to make them better, all the while recognizing you are going to lose a couple more board battles, or you are going to lose a couple more net front battles, or maybe a couple of mistakes are going to be made that wouldn't have been made by a 10-year veteran. But you do that now when you suck. Because when you're playing well, that's not the time to inject youth necessarily. Well, it probably is actually, but it always looks bad, and it's always difficult for them to integrate in quite the same way. Whereas if you've got a younger core coming together, let's say 3-4 players, learning together, growing together. I think that's the right kind of environment to look for. So that brings me on to my last piece. So we trade a couple of those kind of pieces where we can, get rid of some of the slightly older guys. Look, some of those guys are going to have limited value, so maybe you keep a couple around for the locker room. And then I say bring players in from the Moose, particularly those that are not waivers exempt, just rotate them. Let's have Lambert in for 10 games. Let's have Ford in for 10 games. Let's have Chibrikov in for 10 games. Give him a good run. Give him an opportunity. Zhilkin, bring him up for a cup of coffee. Give him 3 games. Expose him to the NHL. He seems to be crushing it in the AHL. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be the best player for it, but I'm just saying, doesn't it give you the opportunity to be more flexible with that? If you're not super stressed about chasing a playoff spot and you are stressed about trying to develop young players and put yourself in a position to succeed next year, because let's say you do a few of those things, right? And I'm not saying everyone's going to hit, but to the same point earlier on with the 40,000 combinations, 1 might, 2 might. And if we're really lucky, maybe all 3 or 4 players end up taking a step and being, totally capable NHL players. Now, some of them might fill out a 4th line. Do you know what? That's fine. Some of them might fill out and progress to be a 2nd line player. And if we're talking about what I was mentioning earlier on with the lineups and going into that kind of 1-2, 4A, 4B kind of setup, well, actually, isn't there some great opportunity there with a 4B being a 4th checking line and a 4A being a 4th scoring line? What a great opportunity. Get a young player on that 4th scoring line, where you've got Taves, youngster, and veteran. And you go, okay, young player, do what you need to do. You'll be up against some of the weaker matchups. Try a Lambert. Try a Chibrikov. Although Chibi could probably do the 4B option with Barron as well. But so could Lambert. Fuck it. Just put some effort into trying something different. And yeah, rotate some youth. So, look, that's admittedly not the most positive topic. Not the most positive 20 minutes to open up what was hoping to be about a half an hour episode. This one I might end up going on a bit longer for. But I just wanted to, I guess, bit of a thought exercise, bit of a piece out there to say, what can a team do differently? Are we seeing them do that? And I guess it's kind of like, well, why aren't we? And what step do you want to take next? Because the way I see it is there's 2. There's one which is you have some confidence in the core and you go time for a shuffle. And then the other is time for some change. And there might be an opportunity there to have a shit season this year, pick up a couple of draft picks, pick up a couple of youngsters, develop some youngsters, and then next year, with a top 10, top 5 draft pick, who's probably NHL ready, a couple of other youngsters who have matured in the Moose who are NHL ready, and cap space up the yin-yang because we don't have old, expensive players on the roster anymore. What a position that is to be in, isn't it? You can probably still eke out the last good year or 2 of Scheifele and Hellebuck. You're probably going to get prime Connor and Morrissey. It feels like a really good opportunity. You use this year as a reset, and next year, make a good run of it for another year or 2. Anyway, that's probably enough, going over this topic. Hopefully I've made my kind of points clear. Really keen, though, to hear what you have to say. So drop some comments in the comment section below if you're on YouTube and or on Spotify. Keen to hear what you do. What are your thoughts on my thoughts? All that sort of good stuff. And yeah, that's it for the Jets. What we're going to do now is go on and chat a little bit about my hockey progress. Okay, so it's been a really busy week. As I mentioned in the start of the episode, I have had 4 separate hockey practices this week, Sunday through to Friday. Well, we'll start with the Sunday. So Adult Learn to Play, good chunk of drills to begin with. We did some skating drills, really basic skating drills, making lemons, back skating, working on some crossovers and stuff like that, which was great. We did scanning with the puck, so head up, looking around, basically full ice, 40 people skating in any which direction, just trying to avoid people with some stick handling. We did some, some like gladiator, 2 men enter, 1 man leave, sort of 1v1s, which was great. And then we had a full ice scrim, which was fun. I will say I prefer the small area games split when you've got the 40 people. It's much more fun constantly rotating in small area games. However, did have a really good time scrimming, and I had a lot more puck touches. In that environment, I'm starting to feel a lot more confident and comfortable. I'm asking for the puck, or I'm picking up the puck and I'm making a play. And actually, one of the chaps I met, I think on week 2 of me learning how to play ice hockey, I couldn't skate backwards. We were partnered up for a drill that one of us had to skate backwards, and he said, "Do you want to skate backwards?" I said, "I can't." So he offered to take that half for me, which was very gracious. We've chatted a few times since, actually, which has been lovely. But yeah, so basically, he came up to me at the end of the session and was like, "You were like actually charging out there. Like there was a it's all relative, but he's like, you were confident on the puck. You charged up the middle of the ice, took on some players, tried to make a play. And I just think that I reflect on that and go, would that have been me 2 months ago?" And the simple answer is no. I'm actually on my 4th month. I think next week's episode will have an interesting sort of lens, because I'll have done 50 hours by the time I come to record next week, which I think is really cool. 50 hours of skating practice, and that's basically from the beginning of the year. But let's not dwell on that too much. But most of those hours are since August. I've done 40 hours of skating and/or hockey since August, which for someone in the UK is hard to do financially and time-wise, particularly when you live so bloody far away from a rink. Anyway, I digress. A really good session. Lots of getting involved. And I had a really good back check as well, actually. So, again, the same chap. I made an offensive play, tried to pass the puck off. I didn't quite get the outcome I'd hoped for. And then there was a breakout play going the other way, and I was maybe, 10 paces behind the guy with the puck. I closed the gap. And that's the first time on a back check that I closed the gap. And that there's that sound when you're aggressively trying to make ground, and it's that almost like a crunching sound of the blade, like that when you're the first few strides, you're just digging in to try and go quickly. And I heard that sound, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like I'm going here," And it was a really good feeling to make that kind of progress. I was really proud of that. That was good. So on the Monday, literally the next day, I had practice with the team that are near where I work. So we did horseshoes, which was enjoyable, and then we did a good chunk of board work. So we practiced rimming pucks around the board. We practiced picking up pucks off the board and doing a bit of a cycle almost, which was good. And then we did this passing and skating drill called tic tacs, I think they called it, or something like that. And basically, you've got one person at the goal line side of a face-off dot, the other person at the top side of a face-off dot, and then you stand. You start on the blue line, and you fire a pass to the far person. You skate around. While you're doing that, they play a couple of passes between each other inside the face-off circle, and then you effectively pick one up, pass it back. They do it again, and then you loop around outside the zone, come back in, and then the person at the far end basically plays you in like they would on a horseshoe. It's actually a really nice way of keeping puck touches going and mobility and stuff like that. Receiving a pass and giving a pass on the move. It's quite good. I really enjoyed that. And then scrimmage. I really struggled during the scrim. I had no legs. The night before, I tried really damn hard, and I think that took it out of me. But yeah, I really struggled with stability. And just keeping my legs under me, really. I was upright the whole time, but I was gassed. And again, a back-to-back thing. I haven't had a lot of days off lately. Lots of driving, lots of hockey, and I'm trying to bake in now a bit more self-care where I can. Then I had team practice on the Wednesday night. We started with Piggy in the middle, so one person in the face-off circle and 5, 6, 7 people around, passing it around. That was really good. Last man standing in the neutral zone. Basically, everyone has a puck, and it's whoever can last the longest. I think I made it down to the last 10 this time. I played a very conservative game and tried to stay away from people. And then scrim, and actually really enjoyable. So good on 2 fronts. One, positioning is taking a step forward, which is really good. So I had a couple of people actually make comments who were in like the upper echelons of the players on the team, being like, "You're finding yourself in the right place at the right time, And there's something really, something really positive in that. However, you need to speak up. Like, find your voice out there, get confident, shout for the puck. Because if I'm putting myself in positions to succeed and I'm not calling for it, other people are going to know, or aren't going to know I'm there, or aren't going to think I'm capable or ready to do something with it. So I did manage to find myself alone in the slot twice. Once was a really nice breakout play, actually. So I recovered the puck in our zone, bank it off the boards, because there's a player up in the top end of the neutral zone basically ready to pick it up. So they go and retrieve the puck from essentially behind the goal line of the opposing team's zone. And so then I'm obviously on my skates. So I start heading up ice along with another player. They're both behind the goal line, giving options. And then I just provide an option in the slot. And instead of passing to the other guy who's also behind the goal line, he puts it into the slot. And unfortunately, I can't recall if the goalie made a save. It was like a pad save, like a leg save, or it was just wide. But it didn't go in. But it was damn close. Like I found myself in the right place. I put a shot on net. And that was a well-earned sort of opportunity. And then similar again, fought to keep a puck in. And managed to turn that into an opportunity to get into the slot. Again, alone in the slot. I actually elevate the puck over the net, and I think that's legitimately the first time I've ever done that. So again, proud that I elevated the puck. Less proud that there are no points for conversions in hockey, and so didn't get anything from that. But I had two shots in high danger opportunities in high danger places. I'm just not a high danger player. So, but really, really good to be involved in that. And again, great conversations with some of the guys around positioning and what we're working on, and learning the defensive position. So I'm out on the wing at the moment and learning to cover the man on the point. That's my priority in the defensive zone as a winger. So it's been good. Like, learning about that's been good. Getting involved, and those are the things I wanted to get from those sessions particularly as well. So, and also just leg speed. Those guys are fast, and I'm learning that I've so far to go, but I'm so encouraged by the progress that's being made. I'm sure one day I'll get there on some level. Maybe not quite the level they're at, but that's okay. So yeah, really, really enjoyable. And then the last session of the week was the first time. So it was a session with a small group. It's the first time I had a small group session. It could be larger, but not many people turned up. But the ice was booked anyway. So there were 8 skaters and a goalie on an Olympic size sheet of ice. That is a lot of ground. So again, it was like we basically used one half, a bit of a warm up, like 15 minutes skating around, puck handling, firing pucks at nets and stuff like that. Then we did some horseshoes. We did some 2-on-1s. And then we did a 3-on-3 game in one zone, basically in one defensive zone. Or end zone, I guess. And it was 3-on-3, rotating one player at a time. So I've gone from maybe skating for 90 seconds and taking a rest for, say, 3 minutes, to skating for 3 minutes and getting a 90 seconds rest. That's basically the difference. And my God, was I fucked. I could hardly feel my legs on the drive home. My lower back was uncomfortable. My legs were absolutely goosed. But really good fun. Like, really genuinely good fun. And so great to just get out there and meet some new people, get involved, have a good time. And all ice time is good ice time, like working on passing, working on disrupting plays, get my body in the way and stuff like that. Just really, really enjoyable. I was not anywhere near the level that those players were at either, but I was really enjoying the challenge. So, that's another thing, actually. Sorry, just to touch on, I didn't talk about it earlier, but in the team practice, we did do 5-on-3 short-handed practices. I loved that. For whatever reason, I loved being on the penalty kill, effectively, trying to prevent scoring opportunities 5-on-3. It just, I don't know, it was really exciting. It was like, you have to work hard, you have to, and I just like that kind of, I don't know if that sort of chip on your shoulder kind of environment where it's like, the plucky underdog or whatever, but I really enjoy it. And so I have recognized that's something I sort of enjoy and want to put more time into. So I guess something I want to work on is being able to skate in a manner that will enable me to be on a penalty kill team. Enable me to take those defensive zone draws and or be in that space and have that kind of responsibility. It was good fun, really good fun, actually. So that's been my week. I'm definitely tried to rest yesterday and the day before. after that session because my goodness, yeah, walking was tough. I'm back out again tonight. It's a Sunday, same old routine. And then next week there's no practice on Monday. I got team practice on Wednesday, and then I think a public skate on the Friday, and then I'm away because it's I have a milestone birthday next week. Not that I'm doing anything massively fancy for it, but I'm going to catch up with a couple of mates and go watch some hockey actually. Half of the course at this point, and also spend some time with family, but nothing crazy. So yeah, pretty cool, pretty exciting week ahead, and it's been a really good week, Jets results aside. So yeah, any thoughts, feelings, like I say, use those comment sections liberally, drop in some thoughts, and we'll go from there. All right, well, enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully you have a lovely time wherever you are, and until next time, bye for now.